my name is Lauren Lipscomb, and this is going to be my final video blog. The movie that I chose to do my project over is called A Long Way Down. It's a British film directed by Pascal Shamil. The main characters are played by Aaron Paul, Toni Collette, Pierce Brosnan, and Imogen Poots. This film is a story about suicide with a very surprising ending. It's about four people who went from complete strangers to basically being each other's reason to live. A little bit of summary about the film is that it starts with four completely opposite people. They're strangers, but they end up on the same roof on the same night, New Year's Eve, with the same intentions, basically, to commit suicide. They end up talking each other out of it and kind of ruining each other's plans for the night by starting a pact and basically agreeing that nobody was going to commit suicide. Everyone was going to stay alive and do it together, at least until February 14th, Valentine's Day, so 2.5 months, basically. Their roller coaster of a few months. It starts with they went on a vacation together. They thought it would be fun to kind of get away. Maureen takes care of her son who has an illness, so they wanted to get her away. They wanted to get Imogen away from her thing that she's doing. They wanted to get JJ away from his job that stresses him out, and all this drama. So they all went away. They all went on vacation. The story then continues with these dramatic ups and downs, lots of love, lots of hate. And then the film ends with the same four people on the same rooftop 2.5 months later, but this time with completely different intentions. So, yeah. Themes and techniques. So I would say that the main technique that the director used would basically be how he showed each character. So, meaning there are 4 different characters. They all have 4 completely different lives, 4 completely different stories. And then there's like the group as a whole and how they act together. So the director did a really good job of showing those 4 characters in their individual lives, and you really get to, as a viewer, you really get to know the characters, and then you got to see how they all interact together. So the director did a really good job from switching the camera roles and all of that. I think that played a huge role in the movie and how the film actually came together, because you can't have each of the individual, if you don't have each of the individual stories, you can't have the story as a whole. So that made it a lot better, to me, in my opinion, to get to know each of the characters, because it brought a lot of diversity to the story. One theme of this film, well, first of all, the 2 major themes are obviously going to be drama and dark comedy. So I'll talk about dark comedy first. Dark comedy is basically a comedy about a sensitive subject. The subject would obviously be suicide. Who would think that a movie with suicide or about suicide, where people wanted to, end their lives, who would think that it could have like a comedic, love-filled twist? So I think that the director and the story writer really took a risk with this one, because choosing to write about suicide is a touchy subject for a lot of people, and then giving it some humor is even more risky. So, okay, the other theme that I think the story had was obviously drama. Drama's pretty simple one, just considering the extreme ups and downs of the story, of the characters' moods, the fights, the love, the laughs, the tears, everything. I mean, it was, think of all the emotions, and then they had it. So they covered it all, the whole spectrum. Next, I'm going to talk about feminism in films. So first of all, this film obviously did pass the Bechdel test. The Bechdel test has 3 criteria. So the first criteria for the Bechdel test is that there are 2 women in the film. This is pretty obvious. The 2 women are Maureen and Jess. Maureen is in her mid-40s, Jess being in probably her early 20s. The second criteria is that the two women that are in the film speak to each other. Well, that was an easy one. That yes, of course they spoke to each other about, numerous things, and they didn't have like the best relationship or girly like friendship, talking all the time, but they did speak to each other. The third criteria would be that the two women in the film that spoke to each other were speaking about something other than men or a man. This is pretty accurate. A lot of the film wasn't about love with a man, even though the film did end with a relationship out of it. That's not what it was about. So Maureen and Jess didn't speak about a man, unless you consider her son a man. At the beginning of the movie, Jess, who is kind of she has an out there personality, let's just say, she was giving Maureen a lot of crap because she was taking care of her son, and she had this different lifestyle than Jess was used to seeing. So Jess did give her a lot of grief for that. Towards the end of the film, the conversations that they had were about Maureen's life and her new hobbies and, her happiness as of the end of the film. So the film did definitely pass the Bechdel test, in my opinion, for those reasons. Let's see. As far as a feminist film, I don't think that this was a feminist film. So when I think of feminist film, I think of Thelma and Louise, and I think of these, very extreme, like, women characters who are, like, very independent. They don't need anyone. They have each other, other women to lean on, and they hate men. And that's what I think of when I think of feminist characters. And I don't mean that in a rude way. I know there's there's feminists out there, and they're not like that. So that's not what I mean. What I mean is that Maureen and Jess don't take on those roles. I feel like the roles that Maureen and Jess are in could be played by a man, just because of their personalities and their goal. All the four characters in this movie, men or women, have the same intentions, and that's just to be happy. I don't think that this is a feminist film. I don't think it's advertising the fact that women need to be independent, blah, blah, blah. I don't think it's any of that. So yeah, basically to wrap this up, A Long Way Down is a dark comedy and drama about four strangers, their suicidal roller coaster, and just basically how it ends. I really like this film, obviously, for the actors. This is why I chose it. I wanted to see how they blended together. The director did a pretty good film considering the storyline. I also enjoyed the small touches of comedy and the cute, happy ending. So, yeah. And that's it. So, thank you for watching, and have a good day.